Picture this. You're 9 months pregnant, lying in the rain, bleeding, begging for help. Your husband looks down at you from his window with his mistress beside him and closes the curtain. That was my reality. But here's the twist. That moment wasn't rock bottom. It was the beginning of the most brutal takedown of a billionaire family this country has ever seen. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm about to tell you how I went from compliance officer to chess piece in a $2 billion acquisition scheme. How I discovered my entire marriage was a business transaction. How they tried to take my baby, frame me for federal crimes, and erase me completely. And how I turned their own weapons against them so viciously that their empire crumbled in 90 days. This story has secret recordings, hidden spreadsheets listing 8 victims, a housekeeper who risked everything, courtroom bombshells, and a revenge so cold-blooded they're still trying to recover. By the end, you'll understand exactly why some people said I went too far and why I have zero regrets. But I need something from you first. Hit that subscribe button right now because this story is long, it's dark, and if you click away, you'll never know how a woman left for dead became the most dangerous enemy a billionaire family ever made. Drop a comment if you've ever ignored red flags in a relationship. You're about to see why that's so dangerous. Now, let's begin where it all started. A conference room in Boston and a man who was way too interested in my company's patents. It started in June of 2021 at the Boston Corporate Finance Summit. I was 26 years old, working as a compliance officer at Meridian Analytics, a mid-sized firm with about 200 employees. We held patents for AI-driven risk assessment software. Nothing glamorous, but solid work. I was good at my job. Careful, detail-oriented, the kind of person who reads the fine print. I should have read the fine print on James Crawford. He approached me at the networking reception on the second night. I was standing by the bar, nursing a glass of wine, watching everyone else work the room with practiced ease. I'd always been better with spreadsheets than small talk. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," he said. I turned. He was tall, probably 6'2", with the kind of easy confidence that comes from never having to worry about money. Dark hair, blue eyes, expensive suit that fit too well to be off the rack. Later, I'd learn it was custom from a tailor in Milan. "Is it that obvious?" I asked. "Only to someone who feels the same way." He extended his hand. "James Crawford." I shook it. His grip was firm, warm. "Sarah Mitchell." "So, Sarah Mitchell from," he glanced at my name tag, "Meridian Analytics. Tell me about your company's patents. Are they exclusively licensed or available for acquisition?" I should have heard the alarm bells right then. Who opens a conversation asking about patent licensing? But I was flattered. Here was this polished, confident man, and he was interested in my work. "Available theoretically," I said, "but the board's not actively looking to sell. We're growing." "Growing's good," he said, "but sometimes the right offer comes along at the right time. Mind if I buy you another drink and we discuss industry trends?" I said yes. That was my first mistake. Over the next 8 months, James Crawford courted me with the precision of a military campaign. Flowers delivered to my office every Friday. Weekend trips to Vermont, to the Cape, to Montreal. He'd pick me up in his BMW and we'd drive for hours talking about everything. Or at least I thought we were talking about everything. Looking back now, I can see how carefully he controlled every conversation. He'd ask about my work, specific projects, who was on my compliance team, what patents we were protecting. At the time, I thought he was just interested in my life. Turns out he was gathering intelligence. He met my parents in September, 4 months in. We drove to Cleveland, to the suburbs where I grew up. My dad was a high school teacher. My mom was a nurse. They lived in a modest 3-bedroom ranch with a mortgage they'd been paying for 20 years. James was perfect. He helped my dad clean the gutters. He complimented my mom's pot roast. He asked thoughtful questions about their lives. After dinner, my mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. "He's wonderful, honey," she said, squeezing my hand. "Don't let this one get away." I didn't plan to. In October, James introduced me to his family. "I want them to meet you," he said. "You're important to me." We drove to the Crawford estate in Cape Cod, 50 acres of manicured grounds, a main mansion that looked like it belonged in a magazine, 3 guest houses. I'd never seen wealth like this outside of movies. Catherine Crawford met us at the door. James's mother was 58, blonde, elegant, with the kind of posture that suggested she'd attended finishing school. She looked at me the way you might look at a stain on expensive fabric. "A compliance officer," she said after James introduced me. "How practical." "Mother," James said, a warning in his voice. "I simply mean it's a sensible profession," Catherine said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Dinner was excruciating. Robert Crawford, James's father, barely acknowledged my presence. He sat at the head of a table that could seat 20, reading the Wall Street Journal while we ate. When I tried to make conversation, he'd grunt and turn the page. James's sister Claire was there with her husband Tom and their 2 kids. She was friendly enough but distant, like she'd learned not to get too attached to James's girlfriends. On the drive home, I was quiet. "They'll warm up to you," James said, reaching for my hand. "They're just protective. Your mom hates me. She doesn't hate you. She's old money, old Boston. It takes time for her to accept people." "Because I'm from Cleveland?" "Because you're not from their world, but you're from my world now, and that's what matters." I wanted to believe him. In February of 2022, James proposed. We hiked Mount Washington, my favorite trail. When we reached the summit, there were rose petals frozen in the snow. "A photographer just happened to be there," he claimed. The diamond ring was 4 carats. I learned later it cost $180,000. "Sarah Mitchell," James said, down on one knee, "you're the most genuine person I've ever met. You make me want to be better. Will you marry me?" I said yes, crying, feeling like Cinderella, like I'd finally made it. The photographer wasn't random. I know that now. None of it was random. We got married in June of 2022 at the Crawford estate. 200 guests attended. My side of the aisle was teachers, nurses, working-class people who'd saved up to buy new suits for the occasion. His side was senators, CEOs, people who owned boats and second homes and spoke casually about their investments. My dad gave a toast. "Sarah worked so hard to get here," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We're so proud of her." I saw Catherine's face across the room, barely concealed disdain. 2 days before the wedding, James presented me with the prenup, 40 pages of legal language. His lawyer walked me through it quickly, too quickly. "Just a formality," James said. "It protects both of us. Every family does this." I signed. I signed because I loved him, because I trusted him, because I wanted to get married, and this seemed like just another piece of paperwork. I signed page 38 without reading it carefully. Buried in the legalese, wife waives rights to marital property acquired through business mergers during marriage term. I didn't understand what that meant. I assumed it was standard. At our wedding, I danced with my dad to "What a Wonderful World." I wore my mother's altered vintage lace dress. I looked at James across the dance floor and thought, this is it. This is my fairy tale beginning. Looking back, I can see now that the photographer wasn't random. The proposal was staged. Every moment was calculated. But in that moment, I felt chosen, special, like I'd finally made it into a world where I belonged. 2 weeks after our wedding, while James and I were on our honeymoon in Italy, Crawford Industries announced the acquisition of Meridian Analytics. My phone exploded with messages from former colleagues. "Did you know about this? Why didn't you tell us?" I didn't know. I was in Rome eating gelato, completely blindsided. "James," I said, showing him my phone, "your father's company is buying mine." "Oh, that," he said. "Dad's been working on that deal for a while. I didn't want to stress you out before the wedding." But the timing, coincidence, these deals take months to come together. I wanted to believe him. I did believe him, because the alternative was too horrible to consider. The deal closed in December of that same year, 6 months after our wedding. By then, I was 3 months pregnant. We moved into guest house number 2 at the Crawford compound. 4,000 square feet, which sounds enormous until you see it dwarfed by the 18,000 square foot main mansion where Catherine lived. Robert had his own wing. Claire and her family lived in guest house number 3. Everything about the compound felt like a test I was failing. Catherine hosted Sunday dinners in the main mansion's formal dining room. They weren't dinners so much as board meetings disguised as family time. The topics were always the same: business acquisitions, political donations, maintaining the family legacy. I'd try to contribute, share something about my day, my work. Catherine would smile that thin smile and say, "That's sweet, dear," in a tone that made me feel like a child interrupting adult conversation. Robert rarely looked up from his newspaper. When I spoke, he'd turn the page. Claire was polite but kept her distance. Once, after a particularly awkward dinner, I caught her in the hallway. "Does it get easier?" I asked. She looked at me with something like pity. "You'll get used to how things work here," she said. "Eventually." I tried to fit in. God, I tried. I took cooking classes to learn Catherine's family recipes. I volunteered at Crawford Foundation charity events, wearing the right clothes, saying the right things. I learned to play tennis, Catherine's sport. I bought designer clothes with my salary, trying to look the part. Catherine would look me over and say, "That's an interesting choice," in a way that made me want to disappear. In December, 6 months into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. I told James first. We were in our bedroom, and I'd taken 3 tests to be sure. "James," I said, holding out the positive test, "we're going to have a baby." He froze, just stopped moving, stared at the test. "That's wow," he said finally. "We weren't planning this yet. Not 'I love you,' not 'I'm so happy,' just we weren't planning this yet." "But it's good, right?" I said. "We're married, we're stable." Yeah, of course. It's just, okay, we'll figure it out." Something in his tone made my stomach drop, but I told myself he was just surprised. He'd come around. At the next family dinner, I announced the pregnancy. I'd practiced how I'd say it, imagining Catherine's face softening, Robert maybe putting down his newspaper. "We have news," I said, taking James's hand. "We're pregnant." Silence. Complete, crushing silence. Catherine's wine glass stopped halfway to her mouth. Robert looked at James with an expression I couldn't read. James stared at his plate. Then Rebecca Hayes, who'd been introduced as the head of strategic acquisitions and had been joining family dinners more frequently, spoke. "Congratulations, Sarah," she said, her voice smooth. "Pregnancy is such a transformative time." Something in her tone made my skin crawl, the way she emphasized transformative, like it was a warning. In January, when I was 7 months pregnant, I was looking for a phone charger in James's home office. I opened his desk drawer and found a folder labeled Meridian Acquisition, Q4 2022. Curious, I opened it. Inside was a timeline. The acquisition talks had started 18 months earlier. 18 months. That meant they'd started in December of 2021, 6 months before James and I even met. But that couldn't be right. Could it? I looked closer. Every document was dated. The initial offer, January 2022. The first negotiation meeting, March 2022. We'd gotten married in June. The deal was announced 2 weeks after our wedding. My hands started shaking. I pulled out my phone and checked the dates again. James approached me at the conference in June of 2021. Crawford Industries had started pursuing Meridian 6 months later. That meant they'd identified my company as a target while James was courting me. I sat down hard in his desk chair. My heart was pounding. "Sarah, what are you doing in here?" I looked up. James stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "The Meridian acquisition," I said. "When did your father start pursuing it?" "I don't know. Dad handles that stuff." "According to these documents, the talks started before we even got married." "Sarah, I'm not involved in acquisitions. That's not my department." "But you're VP of Strategic Development. Baby, are you really accusing me of something?" "Of what exactly? Marrying you because of your job?" He laughed, but it sounded forced. "That's paranoid." "I'm not accusing. I'm asking. Pregnancy hormones can make you emotional, anxious. Maybe you should talk to your doctor about it." I stared at him. Was I being paranoid? The timeline was suspicious, but maybe it really was just coincidence. Maybe I was inventing connections that weren't there. "You're right," I said finally. "I'm sorry, I'm just stressed." He crossed the room and pulled me into a hug. "I love you," he said into my hair. "I love this baby. Don't let your anxiety ruin what we have." I wanted to believe him so badly, because the alternative, that I'd been nothing but a business transaction, was too horrifying to accept. In February, when I was 4 months pregnant, James started working late. Every night, He'd text that he'd be home by midnight. I'd wake at 2 in the morning and he still wouldn't be home. When I'd text, he wouldn't respond. He'd arrive at 3 in the morning with some excuse about his phone dying. In March, there was a Crawford Foundation charity gala. Catherine told me it was cocktail attire, 7 p.m. I arrived in a knee-length navy dress, tasteful and professional. Everyone else was in floor-length gowns. Everyone. I was the only woman not in formal wear. Catherine saw me, and her eyes lit up with something like triumph. "Oh, Sarah," she said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Didn't I mention it's black tie? Must have slipped my mind." The photographer took pictures all night. Me, visibly underdressed, standing next to women in designer gowns. Those photos would later appear in media coverage, used to show how I'd never fit into high society. Rebecca started appearing at family dinners more frequently, not just monthly, but weekly. She'd sit next to James, touch his arm. When she laughed at his jokes, Catherine would watch with obvious approval. "Rebecca's brilliant," James told me one night. "Dad's grooming her for the executive team." I watched them across the dinner table. The way Rebecca's hand lingered on James's sleeve. The way Catherine smiled at her. The way I was slowly being erased. One night in April, I was in the bathroom during family dinner. I heard Catherine and her sister Vanessa talking in the hallway. "Well, she's not what we hoped for," Catherine said, but the Meridian acquisition went through. "And now she's pregnant," Vanessa replied. "What are you going to do about that?" "Let it run its course. We have options." I stood frozen in the bathroom, hand on my belly, feeling my baby kick. That night, I confronted James. "I heard your mother. She said I was part of the business deal." He exploded. "You were eavesdropping on my family in their own home?" "I was in the bathroom. You're being paranoid, creating drama where there isn't any. My mother said no such thing. You're inventing it." I started to cry, hormones and exhaustion and fear overwhelming me. James softened, pulled me close. Hey, I know pregnancy is hard. The anxiety, the mood swings. Maybe we should get you some help." "Therapy? For the stress?" And just like that, he made me doubt my own reality. Made me wonder if I was crazy. The next week, he booked us couples therapy. For 2 weeks after that, he was attentive. Brought me breakfast in bed. Came to my OB appointments. Held my hand during the ultrasound. "It's a girl," the technician said. "Emma," James said, squeezing my hand. "Let's name her Emma." I looked at him and thought maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe we really were going to okay. In April, when I was 6 months pregnant, my morning OB appointment was canceled last minute. Doctor's emergency, they said. I came home at 11 in the morning, earlier than usual. I saw Rebecca leaving our guest house. Her blouse was slightly untucked. Her hair was messed. She adjusted both as she walked toward her car. When she saw me, she didn't look guilty. She looked triumphant. "Oh, Sarah," she said, "James is on a conference call. I was just dropping off quarterly reports." I looked at her hands. No reports, no briefcase, nothing. "Have a nice day," Rebecca said, smiling. I walked to the guest house door. It was locked. I tried my key. James had changed the locks. I texted him. "Why is Rebecca in our house?" Right at 11:15 a.m. No response until 6 p.m. She dropped off work stuff. Stop being weird. That's when I knew. Not suspected. Knew. I'd married a man who'd used me for business, who'd gotten me pregnant by accident, who was now sleeping with his colleague while I carried his child, and I had no idea how to escape. I didn't confront James about Rebecca. I'd learned from the last confrontation. He'd just gaslight me, make me doubt what I'd seen with my own eyes. Instead, I started documenting everything. I bought a journal and hid it in Emma's baby book. Every incident, every strange comment, every time Catherine was cruel or James lied. I took screenshots of text messages. I checked our credit card statements. In late April, when I was 6.5 months pregnant, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Frank Williams, a retired Boston cop who specialized in infidelity cases. I used $3,000 from my personal savings account, money I'd earned before the marriage. "Ma'am," Frank said when we met at a coffee shop 20 miles from the compound, "I'll be honest with you, 90% of the time, when someone hires me for this, They're right about what they suspect. I need to know, I said. I need proof. Give me 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, I met Frank in a Target parking lot. He handed me a manila envelope. I'm sorry, he said. Inside were photographs. James and Marika entering the Peninsula Hotel in downtown Boston. The timestamp showed they'd been meeting every Thursday afternoon for 18 months. 18 months. The affair had started 5 months before James even met me. There were credit card receipts, room charges, bottles of wine, room service, all charged to James's corporate card as business expenses. And then the bombshell. The woman, Frank said carefully, she's pregnant, about 16 weeks along. I stared at him. What? I followed her to an OB appointment. She's 4 months pregnant, due late October. I was due mid-August. He'd gotten us both pregnant within 2 months of each other. I sat in my car reading the report, shaking. An older woman knocked on my window. Honey, are you okay? She asked. I couldn't speak. I just shook my head. She opened my passenger door and sat down. I've been pregnant 4 times. I know pregnancy trouble when I see it. But that, she gestured at the report in my hands, that's heartbreak trouble. Do you have someone to call? I don't know anymore, I whispered. Then you call someone now. You don't go through this alone. My name is Grace. She wrote her number on a napkin. If you need anything, you call me. You're stronger than you think. Remember that. After she left, I called Lauren Anderson. We'd worked together at Meridian before the acquisition. She'd since moved to a competitor firm. Sarah, she said when she answered. Oh my God, I've been wanting to call you for months. What do you mean? After the acquisition, your name came up in some weird context, like maybe your role in compliance was compromised. I think you need a lawyer, Sarah, a good one. Can you meet me? That's when I realized the affair was just the surface. There was something much bigger happening, and I was trapped right in the middle of it. The Crawfords knew I knew. I'm not sure how, but they knew. Maybe Rebecca told them. Maybe they'd been monitoring my activities. Either way, they pivoted to phase 2 of whatever plan they had been executing. Complete isolation. It started small. James moved to the guest bedroom. The doctor said you need space for pregnancy comfort, he claimed, even though no doctor had said that. Family dinners continued, but I stopped being invited. I'd see them through the windows of the main mansion, Catherine and Robert and James and Rebecca eating together. When I asked about it, James said, "Oh, was that tonight? I thought you'd want to rest." Then Catherine asked for her car back. She'd gifted me her old Mercedes when I moved in, said I needed reliable transportation. Now she said there were insurance issues, but I need it for doctor's appointments, I protested. You can use Uber, she said, or ask James. I asked James. He said he was too busy. My mail stopped coming to the guest house. I found out it was being forwarded to the main mansion. Catherine was sorting it. Making sure you don't miss anything important, she said. My OB/GYN called in early July. Sarah, I'm so sorry, but I have to refer you to another practice. Why? Your insurance, it's showing you're out of network now. That's impossible. Crawford Industries has premium coverage or Chohani coverage. According to our system, you've been moved to a different plan, catastrophic coverage only. I checked. She was right. James had requested the change through HR. Prenatal care wasn't covered unless it was an emergency. Every good practice I called was full. No one was taking new patients. Finally, I found a clinic 50 miles away. To get there without a car, I had to take a 2-hour bus ride. I was 8 months pregnant, taking the bus to prenatal appointments. In late June, at 38 weeks pregnant, I couldn't take it anymore. I know about Rebecca, I said. We were in the kitchen. James was making coffee like it was any normal morning. He didn't even look up. Good. Saves time. What? Did you really think this was real? He turned to face me and his expression was completely cold. The mask was gone. You're a compliance officer from Cleveland, Sarah. My family owns $2.1 billion in assets. You were always temporary. Then why marry me? Your company held the patents we needed. Marrying you expedited the acquisition. We saved 18 months of negotiation. And the baby? Unfortunate timing, but we'll manage it. I felt like I'd been slapped. I want a divorce. No, you don't. Because if you file, I'll destroy you. That prenup you signed? Read page 38, paragraph 12. I went back to the guest house and read the prenup. Really read it this time. If I initiated divorce in the first 5 years, I got $50,000 total. If he initiated it, I got $250,000. Either way, it was nothing compared to what I'd need to fight them. That night, I sat alone in the guest house. I could hear laughter from the main mansion. I looked through the window and saw a celebration. Rebecca was there. Catherine was touching her pregnant belly approvingly. Robert was raising a champagne glass. They were celebrating the baby that mattered, not mine. I opened my laptop and created a document. Everything they've done, I titled it, and I started writing. Every incident, every date, every witness. I realized something that night. They'd been systematically destroying me because they thought I was weak. They were right, I had been weak. But that night I decided if they were going to destroy me anyway, I was taking them down with me. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I made lists. Evidence I needed. People who might help. Legal options. Escape routes. By morning, I had a plan. Not a good plan, but a plan. I spent the day researching lawyers. Every family law attorney I called asked the same questions. Did I have assets? Could I afford a retainer? No and no. Finally, someone gave me a name. Margaret Sullivan, Maggie to her clients. Civil rights attorney who sometimes took cases pro bono. I called and left a message, not expecting a callback. She called back in an hour. Tell me everything, she said. I told her everything. The timeline, the prenup, the affair, the pregnancy, the isolation. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Sarah, she said finally, I've been practicing law for 20 years. I've seen bad situations. This is worse than bad. This is systematic. We're going to need evidence. A lot of it. I'm documenting everything. That's good. Keep doing that. But I need you to do something else. Something you're not going to like. No. What? Stop confronting them. Stop showing your hand. Right now, they think you're defeated. Let them think that. Defeated people are less careful. They'll make mistakes. It went against every instinct. I wanted to scream at James, at Catherine, at all of them. But I understood what Maggie was saying. How long do I have to pretend? I asked. Until we have everything we need to bury them. Over the next few weeks, I played the part. The defeated wife, the woman too broken to fight back. Meanwhile, I gathered evidence. Lauren helped. She'd email me documents from the Meridian acquisition. Internal memos showing Crawford Industries had targeted my company specifically. Communications showing they'd researched the compliance team, identified me as the person with access to sensitive information. I found text messages James had forgotten to delete. Conversations with Rebecca dating back 20 months. They'd been together before he ever met me. Every romantic gesture, every intimate moment we'd shared, he'd been reporting back to her. One text from Rebecca, dated June 15, 2021, the day before James approached me at the conference. She's at the networking event tomorrow. Blue dress, brunette. Remember, she's smart, so you'll need to work harder. He'd known what I looked like before he ever said hello. I collected credit card statements showing the hotel rooms, the dinners, the gifts. All of it charged to corporate accounts, carefully coded as business expenses. I saved voicemails. Catherine calling to cancel events I'd been invited to, her voice dripping with false sweetness. We just thought you'd be more comfortable resting at home, dear. Pat Donnelly, the housekeeper, approached me in early July. I was sitting in the guest house, organizing files when she knocked. Mrs. Sarah, she said, can I talk to you? Of course. She sat down, nervous. I've worked for this family for 20 years. I've seen things, bad things, but what they're doing to you, it's evil. Pat, my daughter told me I should record things just in case. So I did. She pulled out her phone. I've been recording for 6 months. Conversations. How they treat you. I want you to have these. For when you need them. I stared at her. You could lose your job. I'm 60 years old, Mrs. Richter, Sarah. I'll find another job, but I couldn't live it with myself if I didn't help. The recordings were damning. Catherine calling me the acquisition in private conversations. Robert discussing exit timelines. James and Rebecca talking about their relationship while I was in the next room. But the most important recording was from July 20th, 3 days before the night that changed everything. Catherine and Rebecca in Catherine's study, discussing plans. She's almost full term, Rebecca said. What if she just leaves after the baby's born? She won't, Catherine replied. Where would she go? No money, no car, no job prospects. We've made sure of that. And if she tries to fight? We have the embezzlement angle ready. Those old approvals from Meridian can be recontextualized. Our legal team is drafting the documents now. Won't that be hard to prove? Digital forensics is surprisingly easy to manipulate if you have the right experts, and we have the best. I listened to that recording 3 times. They were planning to frame me, had been planning it for months. I sent copies of everything to Maggie. She called me immediately. Sarah, this is federal. This is conspiracy, fraud, potentially RICO. We need to get you somewhere safe. I can't leave yet. I'm 9 months pregnant with no resources. If I run now, they'll use it against me. Say I'm unstable. Then we wait until after the baby's born. But Sarah, these people are dangerous. Be careful. I was careful. I played my part, the meek, defeated wife. But inside, I was building a case that would destroy them all. By July, I was 40 weeks pregnant, and they'd stop pretending. The systematic erasure was complete. I wasn't invited to family dinners anymore. I wasn't copied on household emails. When I'd walk past the main mansion, I could see them through the windows, laughing, eating, living their lives. I was a ghost of my own marriage. James had moved his things completely out of the guest house. He was sleeping in the main mansion now, in his old childhood bedroom. Or maybe in Rebecca's room at her apartment. I didn't know, and he didn't bother lying about it anymore. My credit cards were frozen. I checked my bank account one morning and found 47 cents. The joint account had been drained. James had moved everything to his personal account, one I'd never had access to. I couldn't buy groceries. I couldn't pay for gas even if I had a car. I couldn't do anything. I called my parents. My dad answered. Sarah, honey, we've been so worried. Dad, I need help. I need to come home. Silence. Then, baby, we talked to a lawyer. The prenup. If you leave now, you get nothing. And they said they'll sue for emotional distress to the baby. They'll sue us for interference. They threatened you? They called us yesterday, said if we help you leave, they'll sue us for everything we have. We could lose the house, honey, your mom's retirement, everything. I understood. I didn't blame them. The Crawfords had more money than God and no conscience about using it. It's okay, I told my dad. I understand. We love you, he said, crying. I love you too. I was truly alone. Lauren came by when she could, sneaking food and supplies. She parked down the road and walked up, avoiding the main house. But she had her own job, her own life. She couldn't be there all the time. My clinic called on July 15th, my due date. Sarah, you're full term. We should see you for a checkup. I don't have transportation. Can family help? I laughed. It came out bitter. No, they can't. We can arrange medical transport if it's an emergency. It's not an emergency. Baby's moving fine. I'm fine. I wasn't fine. I was trapped. 40 weeks pregnant, no car, no money, living in a guest house owned by people who wanted me gone. On July 20th, 40 weeks and 5 days pregnant, I felt strong contractions. Not the Braxton Hicks I'd been having for weeks. Real ones, 3 minutes apart. I called the clinic. I think I'm in labor. Can you get here? I don't have a car. Can you call an ambulance? Yes, I'll call. I hung up. I stood in the guest house, feeling my daughter moving inside me, preparing to be born. And I realized something. I couldn't call an ambulance. If I did, if I gave birth in a hospital with witnesses and medical records, it would be harder for them to control the narrative. They wanted me to go into labor here at the estate, where they could script the story however they wanted. The contractions were still 3 minutes apart. I had time. I called Maggie instead. I think I'm in labor. Real labor. What do I do? Call 911 right now, yeah. If I leave, they'll say I abandoned the property. They'll use it. Sarah, your safety and your baby's safety, I know, I need to wait as long as possible. Build the strongest case possible. Please don't wait too long. I didn't know then that too long was only 2 days away. On July 22nd, I woke at midnight with contractions every 2 minutes. My water hadn't broken yet, but the pain was intense. I knew this was it. Real labor. Not false labor. Not Braxton Hicks. This was my daughter ready to meet the world. I tried to call the clinic. The after-hours line went to voicemail. I tried Lauren. No answer. It was midnight on a Tuesday. She was asleep. I looked out the window at the main mansion. Lights on in Catherine's wing. Someone was awake. I had to try. I walked across the lawn, feeling contractions grip me every few steps. The grass was wet with dew. My feet were bare. I was wearing a nightgown. By the time I reached the front door, I was crying from pain. I knocked, no answer. I knocked harder. Lights stayed on, but no one came. I banged on the door. Catherine, please, I need help. The door opened. Catherine stood there in a silk robe, perfectly composed even at midnight. Sarah, what on earth? I'm in labor. Real labor. I need you to call 911, please. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw no compassion, no humanity, just calculation. First babies take forever, Sarah. I'm sure you'll be fine until morning. Catherine, please. Something feels wrong. There's pressure. You're being dramatic. This is exactly the kind of emotional instability we've been concerned about. Please, go back to the guest house. Get some rest. We'll reassess in the morning. As she started to close the door, I put my hand out, tried to stop her. Please don't do this. Please, I'm begging you. Just call for help. You don't live here anymore, Sarah. You're trespassing. She closed the door. I heard the lock click. I stood there, contractions coming faster now, understanding finally and completely that they were going to let me suffer. Maybe let me die. I needed to get to James. His bedroom window was around the side of the house, ground floor. I stumbled around the mansion, holding my belly, trying to breathe through contractions. When I reached his window, I could see inside. James was there, in bed, with Rebecca. They were both awake. They saw me. I banged on the window. James, please, the baby's coming. Please call 911. He got up, opened the window 6 inches, not enough to let me in, just enough to talk. Sarah, you need to calm down. I can't calm down. I'm in labor. Please, our baby. Rebecca appeared over his shoulder. Even in my pain, I saw her face. She was 8 months pregnant herself now, triumphant. She's always been dramatic, Rebecca said. James, please, I could die. Emma could die, please. I'll call you an ambulance in the morning, if you're still having contractions. In the morning, James? Rebecca leaned forward. Did you really think he'd choose you? Even your baby can't compete with what we have. James closed the window. The curtains closed. The light went off. I was standing in the rain. When had it started raining? 40 weeks pregnant, in labor, and my husband had just closed the window in my face. I don't remember walking back toward the guest house. I don't remember collapsing in the driveway. I remember pain and rain and thinking, this is how I die. This is how Emma dies. And then I remember nothing. I woke up in the hospital. The first thing I saw was white ceiling tiles. The second thing was Pat Donnelly's face. You're okay, she said, gripping my hand. You're both okay. Emma, she's here. She's in the NICU for observation, but she's okay. 5 pounds, 8 ounces. Small but healthy. I started crying, relief, exhaustion, trauma all hitting at once. What happened? I asked. Pat's face hardened. I found you. I came to work early, around 3 a.m. You were unconscious in the driveway. I called 911 immediately. How long was I? The ambulance said you'd been there at least an hour, maybe longer. You were hypothermic, hemorrhaging. Another 30 minutes and you wouldn't have made it. An hour. I'd lain in the rain for an hour while the Crawford family slept in their warm beds. They left you to die, Pat said quietly. They knew. Catherine saw you, James saw you, and they left you there. A doctor came in. Dr. Martinez, young, competent looking. Ms. Mitchell, you had a placental abruption. Very serious. Emergency C-section. You lost 2 liters of blood. You're lucky to be alive. Can I see her? Can I see Emma? Soon. Let's make sure you're stable first. Over the next few hours, I learned what happened. Pat had charged the ambulance. Catherine had met the paramedics at the door and told them I'd broken in and wasn't family. Pat had corrected her, gotten in the ambulance with me, despite Catherine firing her on the spot. The emergency C-section had saved both our lives. The doctor had noted in my chart, suspected medical neglect. Patient claims family refused to call for help. By afternoon, I was strong enough to see Emma. They wheeled me to the NICU. She was in a clear bassinet, sleeping. Perfect. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes. My daughter. Hi, Emma, I whispered. I'm your mama, and I promise you I will never let anyone hurt you like they tried to hurt us. Never. I meant it. On the second day, the hospital social worker came by. Ms. Mitchell, there are some concerns, medical concerns. Do you have somewhere safe to stay when you're discharged? I can call a friend. The family has been calling. They want to discuss custody arrangements. My blood ran cold. What? They're claiming you're unfit, that you endangered yourself and the baby through poor judgment. They refused to call for help. They left me in the rain. I believe you, but they have lawyers, expensive ones, and they filed papers. That's when I learned, while I was recovering from nearly dying, the Crawfords had filed for emergency custody. They claimed I was mentally unstable, that I'd refused prenatal care, that I'd put myself and Emma in danger. They were trying to take my baby. Lauren arrived on day 3. She helped me discharge from the hospital, drove me and Emma to her apartment. You're staying here, she said, as long as you need. Lauren, they're going to take her. They have unlimited money and unlimited lawyers, and I have nothing. You have the truth, and we're going to make sure everyone hears it. Maggie called that evening. Sarah, I've reviewed the petition. It's bad. They're claiming you fabricated abuse allegations, refused medical care, endangered the baby. They have statements from Catherine saying she offered to help and you refused. That's a lie. I know. And we're going to prove it. Pat's recordings will help. But Sarah, we need more. We need to show a pattern. This can't just be about one night. What do you mean? I mean we need to expose what they really are, and that's going to take time. I looked at Emma sleeping in the bassinet next to Lauren's couch. She was 3 days old. She deserved better than this. Better than a mother fighting for custody. Better than a family that wanted to use her as leverage. But she was stuck with me, and I was going to have to be enough. Over the next 6 weeks, I lived in Lauren's one-bedroom apartment. I slept on the couch. Emma slept in a borrowed bassinet. I pumped breast milk and worked night shifts at a 24-hour pharmacy, the only job I could get that didn't require references the Crawfords could sabotage. During the day, I met with Maggie. We built the case. Pat's recordings, the PI's report, medical records, financial records showing how they drained my accounts. But the Crawfords were building their case too. They released a statement to the press. Sarah Mitchell targeted our son through her position at a company we acquired. When the relationship deteriorated, she fabricated abuse claims to extort money. We're seeking custody of our grandchild to ensure her safety. Comment sections filled with people calling me a gold digger, a liar, a bad mother. Someone leaked photos of Emma to gossip websites. My 3-week-old daughter's face was on TMZ, with strangers commenting on whether she looked like James. I broke. Lauren found me crying at 2 a.m., Emma asleep in my arms. I can't do this, I said. I'm destroying her. Her face is online. People are saying horrible things. Maybe I should just take their settlement and disappear. Sarah, maybe they're right. Maybe I am just bitter and trying to hurt them because I lost. You didn't lose anything. They tried to kill you. But what if fighting makes it worse? What if I'm being selfish? Lauren sat down next to me. What if you win and Emma grows up knowing her mother fought for her? That stopped me. An email arrived that night at 11:47 p.m. The sender was victim1anonymous@protonmail.com. Dear Sarah, it read, you don't know me, but I'm the first victim. I took the money, I signed the NDA, I disappeared. I was wrong. That money ran out. My career never recovered. I lost myself because I let them silence me. You're at the moment where stopping seems easier than continuing. But here's what I learned. If you stop now, you'll never forgive yourself. They're scared. That's why they're attacking. Don't stop. Finish what I couldn't. For all of us. I read it 3 times, then I opened my laptop. I emailed Maggie, I'm not stopping. Let's go to war. I emailed Pat, are you willing to testify in court? I emailed Lauren, I need help finding the other victims. And I emailed James one last time. You should have called for help that night. What happens next is because you didn't. His response came at 3 a.m. You're going to regret this. But he was wrong. The only thing I regretted was not fighting back sooner. Lauren and I found the other victims. It took weeks of detective work, searching corporate records, tracking LinkedIn profiles, finding women who'd married Crawford Industries executives or their associates around the same time as major acquisitions. We found 8 of them. 8 women whose lives had been destroyed the same way mine almost was. Karen Peterson was the 4th victim. She'd been a CFO at a software company Crawford acquired in 2017. She'd married a PE partner, gotten pregnant, lost the baby to stress, signed an NDA, took $750,000 and disappeared. When we called her, she cried. I thought I was the only one, she said. I thought I was crazy. You're not crazy and you're not alone. Will you testify? They'll sue me for breaking the NDA. Let them. We'll fight it together. One by one, they agreed. 5 of the 8 were willing to come forward. The other 3 were too scared, and I couldn't blame them. But 5 was enough. Maggie hired a forensic accountant named David Clark, former FBI. He analyzed the embezzlement evidence the Crawfords had fabricated. This is sophisticated fraud, he told us. Someone took legitimate transactions Sarah approved years ago and altered the context to make them look criminal. But they left digital fingerprints. I can prove it's fake. We gathered evidence. Medical expert testimony about the neglect. Pat's recordings, financial records. Testimonies from 5 other victims showing a pattern. And then we found the smoking gun. Maggie's IT specialist managed to access Rebecca's cloud storage. Legally questionable, but what we found was worth the risk. An email dated August 1st, 2023, before the custody hearing. From Catherine to Rebecca. The Mitchell acquisition is complete. Should we accelerate exit timeline? Pregnancy is inconvenient. Rebecca's response. Use pregnancy as leverage, claim instability, frame embezzlement, take custody. She'll sign anything to get supervised visits. They'd planned everything, every detail. They were going to take my baby and use her to control me. We contacted the FBI, securities fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy. The federal government opened an investigation, and then we went to trial. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters. I arrived carrying Emma, now 3 months old, wearing a simple navy suit. The Crawfords arrived with an entourage of 8 lawyers, Catherine and Chanel, Robert in a $10,000 suit. The trial lasted 6 days. Pat testified first. She played her recordings in open court. Catherine calling me the acquisition. James discussing exit timelines with Rebecca. Robert saying I'd served my purpose. The jury looked horrified. Then Pat played the video from the night of Emma's birth. Grainy phone footage of me banging on Catherine's door, begging for help. Catherine saying, go back to the guest house. We'll reassess in the morning. Several jurors were crying. The medical expert testified. Ms. Mitchell's delay in receiving care bordered on manslaughter. She should have died. Her baby should have died. The fact that they didn't is miraculous. David Clark testified about the fabricated embezzlement evidence. This is textbook fraud, sophisticated, intentional, designed to destroy Ms. Mitchell's credibility. The 5 other victims testified. One by one, they told their stories. The pattern was undeniable. Then Claire Crawford took the stand. The courtroom went silent. Catherine tried to leave. The judge ordered her to stay. Claire looked at me. I'm sorry I didn't help you sooner. I was a coward. I'm done being a coward. She testified about family meetings where they discussed the Sarah problem. She provided 10 years of financial documents showing how the family controlled members with money. She read emails between Catherine and Rebecca planning my destruction. When the prosecutor showed the email about using my pregnancy as leverage, Catherine stood up and screamed, "That's taken out of context." The judge threatened her with contempt. On day 5, I testified. I told the truth. All of it. The conference room where we met, the courtship, the wedding, the discovery, the isolation, the night I almost died. Crawford's lawyer tried to break me on cross-examination. You signed a prenup knowing the terms. I signed it because I loved him and trusted him. That made me naive, not complicit. You're seeking millions in damages. I'm seeking justice. The money is just how we keep score in this country. Aren't you really just angry your plan didn't work? I looked at him. My plan was to have a family, to love someone who loved me back, to raise my daughter in a home filled with warmth. That plan didn't work because they were never capable of love, only strategy. So yes, I'm angry, and I'm here to make sure they can't do this to anyone else. The courtroom was silent. Maggie asked me one final question. Sarah, if they offered you $10 million right now to drop this case and sign an NDA, would you take it? No, Abdaso. Why not? Because Emma deserves to grow up in a world where powerful people face consequences. And because every woman who comes after me deserves to know you can fight back and win. After 6 days, the jury deliberated for 6 hours. The verdict came on November 15th, 2023. The jury found for me on all counts: fraud, emotional distress, medical neglect, conspiracy, damages, $4.2 million, full custody to me. James could have supervised visitation once monthly. Catherine, Robert, and Rebecca had to stay 500 yards away from me and Emma at all times. The judge also referred the case to the state attorney general for criminal prosecution. When they read the verdict, I collapsed into Maggie's arms. The Crawfords sat in stunned silence. Outside, the media erupted. We'd won. The day after the verdict, Michael Thompson's article published in The Atlantic. The acquisition strategy: how a billionaire family weaponized marriage. 15,000 words, meticulously sourced, detailing all 8 victims and the systematic pattern. It went viral. 40 million views in 48 hours. Hashtag Crawford Exposed trended worldwide. The dominoes fell fast. Week 1, the FBI opened a full investigation. The SEC announced an inquiry into Crawford Industries. The IRS triggered an audit. The Massachusetts Attorney General filed criminal charges against James, Rebecca, Catherine, and Robert. Week 2, Crawford Industries stock crashed, losing 67% of its value. The board forced Robert to resign as CEO. Major investors pulled out. Week 3, the criminal trial was scheduled. Rebecca's baby was born a week early, stress-induced. James moved out of the family estate. Catherine was placed under house arrest pending trial. By December, they'd accepted plea deals. Rebecca got 6 years federal prison for conspiracy and wire fraud. James got 4 years and testified against his parents. Catherine refused the deal, went to trial, was convicted, and got 3 years plus 5 years probation. Robert accepted 18 months plus $15 million in fines. Crawford Industries filed for bankruptcy protection. $2.8 billion in debt was revealed. Hidden offshore accounts were discovered. The SEC seized assets. The company was sold to a competitor for parts. The court established a victims fund from Crawford assets. All 8 women were compensated. $23 million distributed. The empire we thought was untouchable collapsed in 3 months. By March of 2024, I'd settled into a new life. I bought a small house in Newton with my settlement money. 3 bedrooms, nothing fancy, but it was mine. Emma had her own room with yellow walls and a window that got morning sun. I worked as a consultant for law firms, identifying financial abuse in corporate structures. $300 an hour, 20 hours a week. I also spoke at conferences about my experience. $5,000 per appearance. Emma was 6 months old, healthy, happy, hitting every milestone. She had no memory of the trauma. She was surrounded by love. Me, Lauren, who was her godmother, Pat, who she called Grandma Pat, Claire, who was slowly rebuilding our relationship. I was in therapy twice a week. PTSD diagnosis, anxiety medication. I had nightmares about the rain, about the driveway, about Catherine's face closing the door. Some days I couldn't get out of bed, but I was healing slowly. Lauren introduced me to David Green in June of 2024. He taught at a preschool, had kind eyes, an easy smile. We became friends, just friends. I wasn't ready for anything more. Emma met her father once a month in a supervised setting. She didn't call him Daddy. She called him James if she called him anything. At 18 months old, she didn't understand who he was. Maybe that was for the best. James had been released after 18 months for good behavior. He worked at a car dealership now. He'd lost everything: his family's money, his reputation, his freedom. When he came to visits, he looked smaller somehow. Broken. Good, I thought sometimes. Then I'd feel guilty for thinking it. In August of 2024, I established the Mitchell Foundation, a nonprofit providing legal support for women fighting powerful families. We helped 200 women in the first year. I also signed a book deal. Maggie negotiated it, $750,000 advance for my memoir. Michael Thompson helped me write it. Acquisition, a memoir, would publish in 2026. Life wasn't perfect. I still had panic attacks. I still hyper-vigilant, checking locks 3 times, looking over my shoulder. Emma sometimes asked why she didn't have a daddy like other kids. I didn't have an easy answer. But we were safe. We were free. And every day I was becoming a little bit stronger. Catherine served 18 months and was released early for age and health reasons. She lived in a small condo now, the estate having been sold. She'd developed major depression. Robert divorced her from prison, protecting what little money remained. Robert served 14 months, was released to a halfway house. His net worth was $87,000. Everything else had been seized. He lived in a studio apartment, worked as a consultant with no clients. Claire had been cut off from the family trust fund when it was seized in bankruptcy. She was working as an elementary school teacher now, her first real job. Her marriage was strained but intact. She and I talked once a week. It was complicated, but we were trying. Rebecca was in federal prison in Connecticut. Her son was being raised by her elderly mother. She was reportedly writing a memoir but hadn't found a publisher. Pat had retired with the $100,000 I'd given her from my settlement. She'd testified at all the criminal trials. She'd written a book, 20 Years Below Stairs, The Housekeeper Who Took Down a Dynasty. When it was a modest bestseller, she used the money for her grandchildren's education. Everything had changed in less than 2 years. Sometimes I'd drive past the old Crawford estate. Someone had bought it at the foreclosure auction. I knew who. I'd organized the consortium that purchased it, because revenge isn't always violent. Sometimes it's strategic. The Crawford estate sat on 50 acres of pristine land overlooking Cape Cod Bay. Worth $12 million before the scandal, it sold at auction for $3.8 million. My consortium bought it in December of 2024. Lauren helped me organize the investors. Maggie structured the deal. We had enough from my settlement and their contributions to make it happen. The Crawford family didn't know I was involved. The purchase went through a series of LLCs, intentionally obscure. When the paperwork finalized, I visited the property for the first time since the night I'd nearly died there. Lauren came with me. Emma, now 16 months old, was with Pat for the day. We stood in the driveway where I'd collapsed, the place where I'd lain in the rain, bleeding, begging for help that never came. "What are you going to do with it?" Lauren asked. "Something they'll hate." In January of 2025, we broke ground on the Emma Mitchell Center, a shelter for women fleeing financial abuse. The mansion would house up to 30 women and their children. The guest houses would become counseling centers. The grounds would be gardens where they could heal. The Crawford estate, the symbol of their power and their cruelty, would become a sanctuary for their victims. When Catherine learned about it from a news article, she reportedly had a breakdown. She called me once from a number I didn't recognize. "How could you?" she sobbed. "The same way you could leave me in the rain," I said, and hung up. I never heard from her again. The Emma Mitchell Center opened in May of 2025. The ribbon-cutting ceremony made national news. I stood on the steps of the mansion, Emma on my hip, David beside me. We'd started dating in March, taking things very slowly. Reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Mitchell, 3 years ago today, you won your case. Do you have any regrets?" I thought carefully before answering. Regrets? Yeah. I regret trusting someone who didn't deserve it. I regret not seeing the red flags. I regret that my daughter will grow up with questions I can't fully answer. But do I regret fighting back? Never. They thought throwing me out while I was in labor would break me. They thought I'd take the money and disappear. They thought I was weak. Maybe I was. But weak things can become strong. Broken things can heal. And a mother protecting her child, that's the most dangerous force in the world. Your book is titled Acquisition. Why? Because that's what I was. An acquisition, a business transaction, a means to an end. But here's the thing about being treated like property. You learn exactly how much you're worth, and it's more than they ever imagined. Last question. Do you consider yourself a victim or a survivor? I looked at Emma, then at David, then at the center behind me. I'm both. I'm always going to be both. They made me a victim. I made myself a survivor. But more than that, I'm a mother. And everything I did, every battle, every nightmare, every moment I wanted to give up, I did it so my daughter would grow up knowing you fight for what's right, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. The Mitchell Foundation grew. By 2025, we'd helped 500 women. We had chapters in 12 states. I'd hired 4 of the 5 victims who testified at trial to run various departments. Karen Peterson was our Director of Victim Services. Diane Cooper ran our legal department. Lisa Carson was Chief Financial Officer. They were rebuilding their lives while helping others rebuild theirs. We formed something none of us expected, a family. Not the family we were born into or married into, but the family we chose. Every year on July 22nd, the anniversary of the night I almost died, we gathered at the center. All 5 victims, Pat, Lauren, Maggie, Michael, and me. We'd light candles, share stories, remember how far we'd come. To survival, we'd toast. To justice, someone would add. To revenge, I'd say. And everyone would laugh, because revenge done right isn't destruction, it's transformation. It's taking the worst thing that ever happened to you and making it mean something. My book published in March of 2026. Acquisition, a memoir, hit the New York Times bestseller list in its first week. Stayed there for 8 weeks. I went on a book tour, 20 cities. Bookstores packed with women who'd survived their own acquisitions, their own betrayals, their own nights in the rain. How did you keep fighting, they'd ask. I didn't keep fighting, I'd say. I kept surviving. Fighting was just what survival looked like for me. In interviews, people wanted to know about James. Do you hate him, they'd ask. No, I'd say honestly. Hate requires energy I don't want to give him. I pity him. He had everything, privilege, wealth, opportunity, and he used it to hurt people. That's not power, that's pathetic. Do you think he's changed? I think he got caught. There's a difference. Emma was 3.5 years old by then. Happy, bright, funny. She knew an age-appropriate version of the story. Mama had to fight bad people was how I explained it. She knew James was her biological father, but David was the one who came to her preschool plays, who taught her to ride a bike, who read her bedtime stories. In July of 2026, David proposed. Small proposal, just him and me and Emma at the beach. Emma was the one who handed me the ring box. David wants to be my real daddy, she said. Can he? I looked at David, kind, patient David who'd never rushed me, never pushed for more than I could give. Yes, I said, he can. We got married in November. Small wedding, 30 people. Emma was our flower girl. Lauren was my maid of honor. Pat cried through the whole ceremony. James sent a card. Congratulations, I hope you're happy. I didn't respond. I was happy. And I didn't need his permission or his blessing. I was also pregnant again. 5 months along with a due in March of 2027. Some people thought it was too soon. Are you sure you're ready? My therapist asked. I'm sure I want Emma to have a sibling who knows only love and safety, a sibling who'll never know what it's like to be born into a war zone. Life wasn't perfect. I still had nightmares. I still had panic attacks when it rained. I still checked the locks obsessively. Some days were harder than others. But Emma was safe. The center was helping women who'd once been where I was. The foundation was changing laws. The victims had found justice in community. And every December, I did something the Crawfords probably found absolutely brutal. I sent Catherine a Christmas card. No message, just a photo. Me, David, Emma, and later our son. Smiling, happy, thriving. I knew she received them. I knew because, once, her lawyer called and asked me to stop. Why? I asked. It's causing Mrs. Crawford significant emotional distress. Tell Mrs. Crawford that I experienced significant emotional distress when she left me to die in her driveway. If she doesn't like my Christmas cards, she can throw them away. The lawyer hung up, but I knew Catherine didn't throw them away. I knew because one of her former staff members told me she kept them in a drawer in her bedroom where she'd see them every day. Good, I thought. Let her see what she tried to destroy. Let her see that not only did I survive, I flourished. Let her see that every evil thing she did backfired so spectacularly that I turned her mansion into a shelter for abuse survivors. That was the brutal part. Not violence, not destruction, but making them watch every single day as I built something beautiful from the ashes of what they tried to burn down. 3 years after the verdict, I stood in the main hall of the Emma Mitchell Center for a media interview. Emma, now 3.5, played in the corner with the children of women staying at the shelter. My pregnant belly made it hard to bend down, but I was managing. A reporter from NPR was doing a feature on financial abuse in corporate America. She'd chosen me as the centerpiece of the story. Sarah, let me ask you something the public really wants to know, she said. The title of your book, the way you framed this story, a lot of people say what you did to the Crawford family was brutal. Do you think you went too far? I'd been asked this question 100 times. My answer was always the same. Let me tell you what brutal actually looks like, I said. Brutal is marrying someone as part of a business strategy. Brutal is getting someone pregnant and planning to take their baby from the moment of birth. Brutal is leaving a woman in labor in the rain for over an hour while she begs for help. That's brutal. And what you did? I held them accountable. I made sure they faced consequences for their actions. I took their mansion and turned it into a shelter. I took their reputation and used it to build awareness about financial abuse. I took every weapon they used against me and transformed it into something that helps others. If that's brutal, then I accept the label, but I call it justice. The reporter nodded, scribbling notes. Do you ever worry about how this will affect Emma? Having her story, your story, so public? Every day. But you know what I worry about more? Emma growing up in a world where powerful people never face consequences, where women are treated as acquisitions and no one speaks up. I'd rather she grow up knowing her mother fought than wondering why her mother stayed silent. After the interview, I walked through the center. 30 women currently in residence, 42 children, each one with their own story of financial abuse, manipulation, systematic destruction. I met with a few of them in the common room. Sarah, there were 3 Sarahs at the center. We went by our last names. Sarah Johnson was 28, fled from a tech executive in California who'd trapped her with debt and surveillance. Reading your book gave me courage, she told me. I thought I was the only one. I thought I was crazy. You're not crazy, and you're not alone. We're going to help you rebuild. How long did it take you to feel normal again? I thought about that question. 3 years post-verdict, 4 years post-trauma. I'm still working on it, I admitted. Some days are good. Some days I wake up at 3 a.m. convinced they're coming back. But it gets easier. The gaps between bad days get longer. She nodded, filing that information away. After I left the common room, I found Lauren in the administrative office. She'd quit her corporate job 6 months ago to work full-time as the center's executive director. You didn't have to give up your career for this, I told her. Not for the first time. I didn't give it up. I traded it for something better. Besides, someone has to keep you from turning this place into an anti-Crawford revenge museum. I laughed. It's not revenge if it's helping people. It's a little bit revenge. You literally turn their mansion into a monument to their failures. You send Catherine Christmas cards of your happy family. Last month you bought the building where James works just so you could be his landlord. That last one was pure business opportunity. Sarah. Okay, it was 10% revenge, but mostly business. She shook her head, smiling. I'm not judging. They deserve it. I just wanted to make sure you're doing okay. The pregnancy, The stress of the center, the book tour, the foundation, it's a lot. I'm okay, really. I have you, David, Emma, Pat, this place, the women we're helping. I'm more than okay. It was true. Some days the weight of it all threatened to crush me, but most days I felt purpose. The trauma hadn't disappeared, but I'd transformed it into something useful. That evening, David picked up Emma from the center's daycare. We drove home to our house in Newton, the three-bedroom with the yellow room in the garden. Over dinner, David had made his famous lasagna. Emma told us about her day. Miss Rachel said my mommy is famous, she announced. Did she? I asked carefully. She said you're on TV. Are you on TV? Sometimes, when people want to hear about the center. Why do they want to hear about it? This was the conversation I'd been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. Because the center helps people who need help, and people like to know about places that help people. Like how you needed help when I was born. David and I exchanged glances. Emma was smart, perceptive. She'd started putting pieces together. Yes, I said carefully. Like that. Was I born at the center? No, baby. The center didn't exist yet. You were born at a hospital. But before the hospital, you needed help? Yes. And James? She always called him James, never Dad or Daddy. He didn't help you? My throat tightened. No, he didn't. That was mean. Yes, it was. Is that why David is my real daddy? David reached across the table and squeezed my hand. David's your real daddy because he chooses to be, I said. Because he loves you and takes care of you and will always be there when you need help. That's what makes someone a real parent. Not biology. Love. She thought about this, twirling pasta on her fork. I love David. I love you too, Em, David said softly, but I don't love James. That's okay. You don't have to love someone just because they're biologically related to you. Good, she said, and went back to her lasagna like we'd been discussing the weather. Later, after Emma was asleep, David and I sat in the living room. His hand rested on my pregnant belly, feeling our son kick. She's going to have questions, he said, more and more as she gets older. I know, I have a whole plan, age-appropriate information at each stage. By the time she's a teenager, she'll know the full story. And if she wants to have a relationship with James, then that's her choice. I won't stop her. But I also won't force it. You're a good mother, Sarah. I'm trying to be. Some days I feel like I'm failing. Like all of this, the publicity, the center, the foundation, is just my trauma playing out on a public stage, and I'm dragging her into it. You're not dragging her. You're showing her what it looks like to turn the pain into purpose. That's not a bad lesson. I leaned against him, grateful for his steadiness. David never tried to fix me. He just stood beside me while I fixed myself. In March of 2027, I gave birth to a son. We named him Oliver. The birth was scheduled C-section at the hospital with excellent security. I'd learned from last time. Controlled environment, multiple witnesses, every precaution in place. David was there the whole time. So was Lauren. So was Pat. Emma came to visit in recovery, climbed carefully onto the hospital bed to meet her baby brother. He's so small, she said, touching his tiny hand. You were this small once. Really? Really? Was I born here too? No, you were born at a different hospital, but both times you and Oliver were the best days of my life. She seemed satisfied with that answer. James sent flowers. I had them donated to the hospital's newborn unit. Catherine sent nothing. I didn't expect her to. By summer, life settled into a new normal. I was on maternity leave from speaking engagements, but still consulting part-time from home. The foundation continued to grow. The center had a waiting list of women seeking shelter. Michael Thompson won a Pulitzer for his article. He called to tell me, "We did it," he said. "You did it. You wrote it. But you lived it. You made it possible." "Are you writing a book?" I asked. "You should write a book." Already talking to publishers. Patterns of predation, corporate acquisitions in the women they destroy. Catchy, right? Needs work on the title, but do it. Tell all their stories, not just mine. That's the plan. All 8 women, the system that enabled it, how it keeps happening. After we hung up, I looked around my living room. Emma was playing with blocks. Oliver was asleep in his bassinet. David was in the kitchen making dinner. This was not the life I'd imagined when I was 26 years old, meeting a handsome stranger at a conference. That life had been a fantasy, a carefully constructed trap. This life was real, messy, complicated, beautiful, real. Some people probably thought I should have let it go by now, moved on, forgiven, put it behind me. But here's what those people didn't understand. I had moved on. The center, the foundation, the book, the advocacy, that was moving on. It just wasn't moving on in the way they expected. I hadn't forgiven the Crawfords. I probably never would. Forgiveness is for the forgiver, people say, but I found peace without it. What I had instead was purpose. Every woman who came through the center's doors, every law we helped change, every person who read my story and recognized their own, that was moving on. And every Christmas card I sent to Catherine, showing her my thriving family in the mansion she'd once ruled, that wasn't moving on. That was making sure she never forgot what she'd done. Was it brutal? Maybe, but it was also justice. And sometimes those two things look exactly the same. In November of 2027, I received a call from Claire. We've been rebuilding our relationship slowly. She came to visit once a month, played with Emma, was trying to be the aunt she should have been from the start. "Sarah," she said, "I need to tell you something. Robert died." I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not sadness, not relief, just nothing. How? Heart attack, in his apartment. They found him 3 days later. "Are you okay?" "I don't know. He was my father. He was also a monster. Can both be true?" "Yes," I said, "both can be true. The funeral is next week. I don't expect you to come. I won't. But you should go if you need to. You're allowed to mourn him even after everything." "Thank you." After we hung up, David asked if I was okay. "I think I am," I said. "I thought I'd feel something, glad he's gone. Angry he never really paid. Something. But I just feel empty about it. That's probably healthy." "Is it? You've already processed what he did to you. His death doesn't change that. You don't have to feel anything about it if you don't." Emma came running in. "Mama, can we go to the center today? I want to see the new girl." "What new girl?" "The one with the baby. She's my age. Miss Lauren said we could play." I looked at David. He shrugged, smiling. "Your daughter wants to go to work with you." "She's really your daughter when she's being precocious. And she's definitely your daughter when she's helping abuse survivors at age 4. We went to the center. Emma did indeed play with the daughter of a newly arrived resident. I worked in my office. David handled some administrative tasks. Oliver napped in his carrier. This was my life now. Taking my kids to work at an abuse shelter in a mansion I'd seized from my ex-husband's family. Writing books about financial abuse. Sending passive-aggressive Christmas cards to my former mother-in-law. Running a foundation that had helped 800 women in 3 years. It was weird. It was messy. It was mine. And here's what I learned through all of it. The greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's transformation. They tried to make me nothing. I became someone who helps women who were once nothing become someone. They tried to take my daughter. I built a place that keeps mothers and children together. They tried to silence me. I became one of the loudest voices in the conversation about financial abuse. Every evil thing they did, I turned into something good. And that, I think, was the most brutal thing I could have possibly done to them. Making them watch while I thrived, making them see that every weapon they used against me became a tool I used to help others. Making them understand that trying to destroy me was the biggest mistake they ever made. Because I didn't just survive them, I beat them, and I made sure everyone knew it.